by now, we don't have any new members, so I'm not going to introduce about the club. About the book, yes, this is the book that I have chosen. And the reason why I actually chose this book was it has all the Indian stories, point number one, and the way it is narrated is quite interesting. There's a lot of drama, there's a lot of the typical masala that we have in the Indian scenario about what were the barriers, like the money wasn't there, they had to sell jewelry and things like that. So that's a little interesting way in which it is being narrated. So I thought it was quite interesting. 11 stories are what are there in this particular book, and very diverse. They're not only from the corporate sector, they are from the public administration system, they are from the healthcare, they're from the publication. So quite a variety of actually topics that they have chosen. A lot of research has gone into it. So it's quite interesting. I'm going to start by asking you a question. Okay? If you think of innovation, and be very honest about it, what are the words that really, or what are the brands that really hit your mind? Anyone? Ankur?
Innovation is Google.
Google, okay. Anybody else? Yeah.
Loyalty, Apple.
Apple. Wow. Look, that's what exactly the author says. Yeah, Google, Apple, 3M, Sony. None of the Indian names really come on the top of our mind when we actually think of innovation. These are some of the top brands that hit any Indian mind when we think of innovation. And that's exactly the story that the author Porus Munshi is himself an innovator. He's a consultant in innovation. He's trying to sort of project or sort of showcase in this particular book. So I'll quickly go to the summary of this book. It's almost 6 years of research that the two consulting firms have done, which is Arvon Innovation Consulting and Marico. This book has been written by Porus Munshi, who is himself an innovation consultant. And what they did was, this team met up with around 180 people from 40 industries and various segments to identify what they actually tagged as orbit shifting innovations. So what was seen as a continuous theme in all the stories was that there's always a hero. There is someone who comes out with this personal leadership, and then of course there is institutionalization of processes and things like that. So that has been sort of a continuation. And then there is this intrinsic empowerment that also cuts across each story when it is being narrated. And finally, there is this message for all of us as Indians is, hey, time to take charge, and we can definitely do it. For example, one of the stories is that of Titan, where the entire team felt that we can never have the slimmest water-resistant watch because the Swiss cannot do it. So how can we do it? But the message at the end of it is, yes, we can do it. So that's basically the book all about. What I have done is I have chosen 4 stories from different segments so that we still get the essence of what the author wants to say, and then we could probably get into a little bit of conversation. So the first story that I'm going to talk about is really my favorite. It is from the healthcare industry, and it's about urban hospitals. The reason why I really like that story is because, and you will see, it's completely different model. It has nothing got to do with healthcare industry from where he's chosen a best practice is from McDonald's. That's the assembly line model that they had chosen. And the business model is that of an STD booth or an Xerox machine, because of which they were able to really give free service to people. And before that, what I'm going to do is, I'll just tell you what the format I'm following. So when I was reading through the book, each story is very elaborate. It has a lot of details, it has a lot of drama, so it was a little difficult for me to understand what is it that the messages that need to be called out and really presented here. So what I did is each story I actually put it in a particular format. So every story has a hero. Unfortunately, there is no heroine, but every story is having a hero. There has always been a legacy where things have actually existed the way they are and nobody challenged the status quo. There has always been an opportunity which has really been sort of recognized by the hero, and that's where he has started working on. And then it has details about what exactly was done, how it was done, and things like that. Every hero came across a barrier. It might have been because of the mindset of the people, or because of corruption, or things like that, or because of money and so on. And then there has been that fantastic result at the end of every story. idea. So as you can see, I put a small animation there. The sun is going around the earth, and that's really the message of each story. And that I'm going to highlight, after every story. So with that, let me start with my first favorite story, which is that of Arvind Eye Care. Well, as you can see, the hero of this story is Dr. Govindappa Venkateswamy, or Dr. V, as he's called. So Dr. V's story is also very interesting. He started his career actually as a gynecologist, and then he was down with arthritis. He was just not able to perform those heavy surgeries which are required by a gynecologist. He was actually bedridden. He came out of it. He developed some instruments of his own. He actually studied once over again. He got into ophthalmology, which is the eye, sort of specialization. And then he went into teaching. He became a professor. He started getting into this eye camps and with his students, and started visiting villages and things like that. So which was a very small time activity really. But over a period of time, when he retired, which was at the age of 56, he actually dreamt big. He dreamt that he wanted to actually eliminate blindness or unnecessary blindness. When I say unnecessary, it's because of cataract and things like that, from India, which was a big dream, and that too after retirement. He had no money, really. He just had a dream, but no money. He invited his sister and brother-in-law from the US, and both of them were eye surgeons. That's when he actually started. The legacy to this story is that, the capacity of eye surgeons was very limited to conduct surgeries that time. And it was completely a very non-affordable way in which the underprivileged could actually reach out to surgeons and conduct those stories. So that was where we were. And the opportunity that he saw was to eliminate blindness through free surgeries. So that's where his journey began. And what he really started doing is, because he had no money, and nobody was able to even lend out to him because he was retired, he actually started with one 11-bed hospital, And then the way he actually recruited his staff was also fairly simple. He actually got nurses from the 10th standard pass from the villages close by. He trained them for 2 years, so even the labor was cheap for him. He further studied, which is really the path-breaking idea, is the McDonald's assembly line. Because obviously he had to increase the number of operations that were done. There was a lot of demand, but the capacity of surgeons was very limited. So what he really did was, this assembly line is very interesting. In one operation theater, there used to be 4 patients, sleeping next to each other. There were 2 surgeons in the room and 2 nurses helping, each surgeon. So once one operation was over, they had to immediately switch to the next one. So there was no, time gap between the first operation and the second. By the time the first, patient used to be out, and this surgeon used to come back to the 3rd patient, and they used to do back-to-back operations from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m., which was like, huge. I think they did around 30 operations per day or something. So the average eye surgeon is able to operate close to around 250 to 400 patients in a year. But this guy actually developed a model where they were able to actually increase the productivity of surgeons 10 times, and they could actually operate almost 2,000 surgeries. So that was a sort of a process practice he picked up from McDonald's, and he was able to reach such a huge number. In fact, you can see currently they are at 286,000 surgeries in a year, and they plan to touch around 1 million by 250. That's where currently the team is. I think one of the other reasons why I also like this story is because they have become role models globally to a lot of students, international students who come there. There's a lot of knowledge transfer that is being done, and this is one of the things which is the last point. The results. Only 30% of the patients really pay. Okay, the reason for that is they have actually chosen like the Xerox model or the STD model, where the output has to be more. Only the people who can pay. So that's 30% of the population. The rest of them go completely free, and still they are able to make 35% operating profit. So it's not a it's not a CSR activity. They still do make money. So that's how actually this entire story has emerged. interesting idea really, as you can see here, was the first one, the process, taken from a completely different industry, that was McDonald, and the business model that was adopted, which was that of an STD booth or a Xerox, because of which this entire model has become a success. So this is, this is a story which has an orbit shifter hero in it, and a success at the end of this particular story. So that's the first story that I would like to talk about. The second one is that of Kevin Care. The hero, as you can see, is C.K. Ranganathan, Ranga, as he is called. Again, someone who started with a very, very small amount of money, 15,000 to be precise. Today he's at 700 crore. The guy had no money. He had the people with whom he was fighting are actually the MNCs, the giant MNCs like Procter and Gamble and the Hindustan Levers of the world, where at that particular point of time there was hardly any small timer who wanted to give competition to such giants. Either they would be bought around with these people, or they used to just get frustrated and come out. So that was the situation in which he actually entered the market. In terms of opportunity, what this guy really saw was there was a lot of segment, a lot of market that was completely untapped by the MNCs. One was, of course, the villages, and the second one was the lower economic segment of society.
What do they do exactly?
Sorry?
What is Kevin Care about?
He's in cosmetics.
Cosmetics.
He started with hair care. So I'm going to come with that story. So that's where he actually started. So he actually first entered the market with hair care, okay, the shampoo. So, and again, 15,000 as an investment is very little, I think some 3,000 or 4,000 worth of machine he bought, some 250 rupees rent sort of room he started with. Very, very small time business that he started with, and introduced a check sachet of rupees 1 really, because his segment was, the economically poor population. So what he did was, when he introduced this entire 1 rupee packet, and obviously he was fighting against the MNCs, that's not a joke really. So he actually wanted to build the recall and the repeat value of this particular brand. So what he did was he introduced a very simple scheme. For every 4 sachets of any shampoo whatsoever, he said you will get 1 chick free. So that picked up, that completely picked up the sales. And later on, of course, he changed it. He said every time you come, you have to bring 4 sachets of chick, and then only you can get 1 free sachet, because otherwise it wouldn't have become a very profitable this. But his objective was to build a recall value, which he was able to do it. The repeat value, the recall value, he was able to do it. And with that, his sales really went up. It became the second largest, sort of sold shampoo in Tamil Nadu. So, of course, he introduced it there. So that's where he was. And then he realized that, hey, now it's time to target the rural market, because rural market people used to use the soap. They used to not use shampoo. So he did a lot of research, and then he found out people were not able to afford the shampoo. So that's where he introduced a 50 paise pouch, and it was very difficult internally for him to even convince his R&D team to come out with a concentrate where it is smaller in terms of quantity, but still is able to give the similar type of results. So he himself actually rolled his sleeves and did a lot of research and introduced that. So again, he was successful. He was able to sort of penetrate into the rural market. And then there was a lot of market he saw was never untapped, in the south. People used to apply soap because they never felt the need for shampoo, and they felt that the natural products like Rita and Hina and all that were good for the hair. So he still wanted to tap that market. That's where he introduced, all this natural-based product shampoo. And slowly he started getting into #1 position in the south, and he still is. So that was the hair care section that he got into. And then the next one was diversification for him. So he actually diversified into a very unique segment, which is pickles. What he found that the pickle pouches which were available in the market were actually packed in a very unhygienic situation. So he introduced something called as a machine pack pickle, the chimney. That was the name of that. And today, of course, it is the largest selling pickle, the sachet pickle in India. So that was his next venture.
Amazing.
Yeah, the small pouches. And then, the next he did a lot of research. He realized that Indian market loves to have this milk and saffron. They believe that that makes it fair. He did a lot of Ayurvedic research and started positioning his brand as something that has a base with milk and saffron, and of course he positioned it as a premium product. Today, of course, it has a 8% market share, so he's still surviving, honestly. And the last one was what he really did in his entire sales and marketing journey is he actually chose new distributors rather than going with the established one, because he knew with 15,000 nobody's going to even make him stand. That was a very poor investment. So that was one of the other things that he did in his entire journey. So barriers, 15,000, as I told you, today it's a 700 crore company. It is number one hair wash company in the south, which is followed by P&G and Hindustan Unilever. So he's left the giants behind. And of course, number one pickle sachet company in India. So that's his success story. In terms of his orbit shifting idea, well, as I said, his unique sales and marketing strategy. Little things that he did which probably nobody had tried, like even those sachet sort of exchange offers and experimenting with the new distributors and tapping all the untapped folks who had never used shampoo earlier. So it was a little bit of a unique idea that helped him to get to number one in some of the areas. So that's the story of Cabin Care. The next one I have chosen is that of Dainik Bhaskar. So that's from the publication segment. As you can see, the heroes of this story is the Agarwal family. The legacy, of course, was, and I think all of us experiment and experience this on our daily basis. Once we are with Times of India, we want to be with Times of India. That's what was even the story that time. There was a complete brand loyalty to certain newspaper, and it was like a morning habit, which people didn't want to break. And that's where they wanted to make entry in several states of India with something that was different. So the opportunity that they actually realized was to have a newspaper that had everything that an end customer wanted, and that's where they actually started their journey. In terms of what they did, well, they had a very huge dream. The statement that they made was, we want to reach the heaven. And the other one was a very bold statement. We're ready to even die for it, is what they said, which was a little too much, but that's where they actually started. The unique action which they really did was a very intense research strategy that they had in place, that they put in place really. So instead of sampling a few people, they actually reached out to the masses. Almost every person or every customer they actually met. Again, they kept the sort of investment very low. Not that they didn't have money, but the fact is they just wanted to keep it low. And they actually chose a team which was either the students, the graduate, or the first-time job seekers. And they actually groomed the team in every way, in terms of engaging with the customers, in terms of the body language, in terms of the overall conversation and things like that. So after coaching the entire team, they were set on the field to talk to the end customers. Every household the people were talking to, the research team was talking to. And they were just asking two questions. What is it that, what is missing in your current newspaper? That was the first question. And of course, what do you want in your newspaper? What do you want the newspaper to do to you? So, very crisp, but still huge data that emerged out of it. And the newspaper was evolving as per the customer need. The second thing that they really did was, they built the customer commitment well in advance. There was this, advanced subscription that they designed with a guarantee bond. So this guarantee bond was very unique. The first thing was, it is going to be priced at lower than what the stand is going to have, which means the standard might be 2 rupees, but they're going to give it at 1.5. And the second one is, if you are unhappy with the product, you get the entire money back. So it was a guarantee bond that each customer signed. So that again, built a lot of loyalty even before they launched the product. And then there was localization of some of the newspaper, like in Chandigarh, they launched a Hinglish combination of Hindi and English, a Hinglish one, some freebies and a better design, and all that stuff. They did it in their journey. Of course, their barrier was to break, into every state. The results, they were number one actually from day one of the launch. Jaipur, Chandigarh, Hyderabad, Haryana, Ahmedabad. And today, it is the largest read newspaper in the country. It is counted as one of the top dailies of the world. So, and of course, it has expanded to some of the locations. In fact, important. It actually expanded the newspaper market in some of the locations. So for example, if the newspaper market itself was 53%, it actually reached somewhere like 65%. So it increased the reading capability of the audience. And as you can see, it has established multiple titles in 3 languages across 9 states of India. So that's the story. DNA is also one of their famous brands.
Where did they start?
Sorry?
Where did they start?
I think it started around 99 or something.
See, I listened to Airwan, the consulting guys who wrote the book, describe this story. And these guys started with a goal that, that orbit shifting idea was the traditional approach to newspaper selling was you start, give free samples, build your subscription base and circulation. They flipped that completely on their head and started with a model that says we want to be X amount of circulation on day 1. And the way they did that was they got all these students that she was describing and trained them up, put a particular color t-shirt on them so you recognize it, did an ad campaign around the city saying these guys will be coming to your doorstep to understand what you need. So they sent these guys
around. That must have been a pretty significant investment.
Oh, very significant upfront investment. But they started Ahmedabad with that, hit number 1 on day 1. Then replicated the model in, as she said, Jaipur, Chandigarh, Haryana. And the whole DNA launch in Bombay was done the same way with ZT.
Even in Pune,
yeah, same model followed through. So, but the point was, they were then profitable immediately. The advertising that they got was, again, you were instant number 1 paper in the city. Otherwise, if you look at it, you could go years and give free samples and not make any money or get anywhere at all. So yes, it's significant upfront investment. But in an established market, you said the newspaper reading market was mixed, established players, and you could be giving free samples forever and not popular. So you would have just bled that initial investment, they just go to collapse it up front.
Sure. And they absorbed a lot of these research people as well in different cities. So it was not just training them and leaving them there. They were also going to be a part of the journey. So even that motivation was there with them, that hey, if I perform well, I'm going to be a part of their employee base at one point of time, which they did. So, the orbit shifting idea has been this intense research model as compared to the sampling which normally most of the organizations do, reaching out to the massive audiences, what was their level of engagement with their end customers. And of course, the customization, localization that I said was something that they created as path-breaking discovery and proving very successful. That's the story of Dainik Bhaskar. The last one here is a story from Trichy police. So it's a completely different area. The hero here is J.K. Tripathi, who is the guy. The image, I think, it never changes in India as far as any city is concerned. The corrupt image of the police and inadequate intelligence, which is available at any point of time, which was also existing in Trichy. High level of corruption, high level of crime, and that's where he actually started his story. The opportunity that he saw was, the public and the police partnership, and more and more empowerment for the police to take decisions, going beyond the call of duty, and being closer to the community to really action and act upon some of those problems. And the last one was, of course, to know the pulse of the community, to stay connected with them. So those were some of the things that were missing, and he completely built the model based on this. So what did he do? Well, first of all, he selected around 260 constables. These are not commandos or anything like that. He just selected them based on whoever were there. He personally interviewed them, did a lot of their background verification to understand the people that he's chosen are the right ones. And so that when I say right ones, no corruption and no alcoholism and things like that, and who are fairly focused on performance. And then, he built this team to take care and be closer to the community. So they were not expected to report to office, the police station rather. They were expected to work from home, being closer to the community, find out information, keep on feeding to him, whether it's day or night. So basically, he was building his intelligence, that was there, that he could get from closer to people. The other thing he did was he even flashed his mobile number everywhere, newspaper, here, there, so that the community, the people could actually reach to him directly. There is completely unadulterated information that actually reaches him. The people see what is happening around. They even give feedback about his own team. So it's not only that they just talk about what's happening in the neighborhood. They also talk about his team, which was very important, and that also built a lot of credibility that, hey, we need to perform well because our boss is going to hear what's happening. So that was the other piece. And he always showed with prompt actions, whether it was related to corruption, whether it was related to anything else. For example, there was this incident that is narrated where there used to be a tanker that used to come. The people used to be paying for 2 buckets and used to always get only 1 bucket. So he used to have his team out there in plain clothes so that they monitor, they take decisions. So this team was also empowered. Okay, I think that was the second thing I missed out telling. They were involved in taking decisions. They were even empowered to take decisions because otherwise then they would have been just puppets on the ground. So he told them, you're free to take whatever decisions you want on the ground. So they used to be closer to all these community systems, water tankers, municipalities, and all that stuff, and monitor in terms of what's happening on the ground and take all the spot decisions. So that was the other piece which was really very important. And in the process, because of a lot of this information that kept flowing in, a lot of empowerment to his team, he was able to bring down the crime detection rate. He was able to increase the crime detection rate from 78 to 86% in a year and up to 95% in 5 years. And of course, then the crime rate also dropped by 40% in 2 years. And then, of course, the end result was the community, NGO, police, politician, bureaucrats, all of them also started working in harmony. There were certain decisions that even he went beyond the call of duty. If the municipal commissioner, the municipality folks are not working because they're not getting money, he just engaged with some local students and started laying the roads. So he went even to that extent. So there was a lot of development that was happening at a community level, a lot of connection that was happening with the community. And that resulted in a lot of changes which did away with a lot of corruption, a lot of pressure that the political parties were trying to bring in, and finally, as you can see, he emerged as one of the heroes in Trichy. So that's really the story, the last story that I really wanted to talk about. The orbit shifting idea, basically making police part of the community, so that we don't see them as those folks who are standing in the corner, watching, having fun, and being corrupt. At the end of the day, they were part of the community, they were empowered to take decisions, and they had direct connection with the community. So that was his path-breaking idea. So with that, the author says it's time for us to take charge. Thank you very much for the journey, and it's time for our discussion.
What comes to your mind when you think of innovation and we talk about Google and Apple? And we saw 3M and Sony there. And after hearing these stories, what comes to my mind is those examples of Google, 3M, Sony, those are institutionalized innovations. Here it's more individualized. There is one person who is thinking beyond what is commonly thought. That innovation is possible in India, not just in Google's and Sony's, or is he trying to make some other point?
No, absolutely. That's the message he's giving. If you remember, there was this scheme that I ran through, and what I said is, he says that every time there has been an innovation, there has always been a hero. Honestly speaking, even if I think of Apple, the only name that comes to all
Apple is the only one. Forget about Apple.
Yeah, okay.
Talk about any other company.
But obviously, in any organization, I'm just diverting from the book now, but any organization, there always is someone who has to lead that, that fire.
Yes, because there is a leader, but innovation is institutionalized. Everybody in the organization thinks about innovation. There are R&D teams which think about innovation. Here, these are individuals who are thinking about ideas, innovative ideas.
Correct. But they are the one who actually spearhead those ideas. But later on, if you see, those are institutionalized. For example, if it is Urban Hospital today, it's completely institutionalized from a process perspective, from a practice perspective.
Process is institutionalized, not the innovation.
No, I think in the case of the Air One people, they came at it from a slightly different perspective.
Which one?
The people,
The
the
people who
innovation
did
group
the
she mentioned
complete
at the start,
research.
they call themselves Airborne, and the tag is actually nowhere spelled backwards. It's a change of perspective.
Okay.
That's where the name comes from. So they, with the Marico Foundation, set out about a decade ago to